The A350-1000 is currently the largest plane Airbus builds, but according to Sir Tim Clark, it's simply not big enough. In recent months, the longtime Emirates president has been calling on Airbus to think bigger and build a true A380 replacement. To some, these calls make no sense. The A380 was a massive $30 billion boondoggle, and hyper-efficient twins like the 787 are just far more economical and far more versatile than massive quadjets. So why then does Emirates want a next-generation jumbo? And more importantly, will Airbus actually build them one? Let me explain. Real quick, folks, it's not exactly a secret that Boeing and Airbus have been struggling. In the last year, both of their stock prices are down over 30%. This is a reflection of the greater economy. According to CNN, 72% of economists expect a recession in the next year. This, of course, doesn't just affect Boeing and Airbus, but also people like you who might have their money tied up in the stock market. When markets go south, savvy investors often place their money elsewhere, and a growing number of people are turning to Masterworks, today's sponsor, to help diversify their wealth. Masterworks is the very first platform that lets you buy and sell shares of iconic pieces of art without needing millions of dollars, and their returns are pretty compelling. To date, Masterworks art sales have netted investors a 29% return. And their latest exit, which was just a month ago, saw a return of 33%. Now, this is not financial advice, but if you want to learn more about fine art investing and how it could protect you during a recession, I'd encourage you to check out Masterworks. And while Masterworks usually has a waitlist to join, my subscribers can actually skip to the front of the line. Simply visit the link in the description to check it out. First, let's quickly unpack Emirates' desire for a new A380. It's well known that the airline is a bit of an outlier when it comes to the plane. Most A380 customers lament its poor operating economics, but Emirates sings its praises. And it's put its money where its mouth is. Of the 251 A380s ever built, Emirates owns 123 of them. But why does the jet work so well for Emirates when it clearly doesn't for others? Well, first of all, the airline's operating model is uniquely suited to the A380. Emirates is a hub-and-spoke airline, whose primary focus is connecting major cities in Europe to major cities in the East, using its hub in Dubai as a stopover. And many of the airports it flies into are either slot-restricted or have issues with capacity. Now, the A380 was designed to address these very constraints. Its massive size helps reduce the number of flights at crowded airports. As such, it was a natural fit for Emirates from the start. But hold on a second, isn't every A380 operator a hub-and-spoke airline? Yep, they sure are, so there must be more to the story here. What truly makes Emirates stand out from its peers is the sheer size of its A380 fleet. Again, Emirates has taken delivery of 123 A380s. The next largest customer ordered just 24. This has allowed the airline to achieve economies of scale, helping to streamline things like maintenance and crew training in ways that other airlines can't. On top of that, planes tend to be cheaper when you buy them in bulk. Emirates did just that and realized huge savings. While operating such a large A380 fleet clearly has benefits, it isn't without risk. A few years back, the A380 program was cancelled, with Airbus citing poor demand. This has backed Emirates into a corner. No other plane comes close to matching its capacity. So once its A380s are ready for retirement, Emirates will have no natural replacement for them. This could force the airline to completely upend its fleet strategy, which, needless to say, will cost them dearly. It's no surprise then that Emirates wants an A380 successor. But the question is, will Airbus oblige? Well, they ought to at least consider it. For one, Emirates is one of their biggest and most important customers. If Airbus outright dismisses their wishes, it could strain their relationship and cause long-term harm. What's more, jumbo jets may be on the verge of a renaissance. Like I covered in a recent video, the global pilot shortage is only poised to get worse, and large planes could help tackle this issue, since they carry more passengers than narrow bodies and don't need extra pilots. It's quite possible that planes like the A380 could become a hot commodity, and Airbus might be smart to tap into that demand. If you want to learn more about this phenomenon, I'll be sure to leave a link to that video in the description. But despite all this upside, building an A380 successor poses too great a financial risk. As it stands today, Emirates is the only airline that's expressed real interest. The memory of the A380's failure is still quite fresh, so most airlines seem keen to take a wait-and-see approach with its successor, choosing not to buy it until it actually proves its worth. Needless to say, launching a new plane with just one guaranteed customer is an intolerable risk, no matter how important that customer is. And frankly, Airbus's efforts are better spent elsewhere. There are other, more lucrative market segments it should tackle with its next plane, ostensibly called the A360. I'll be doing a deep dive into the A360 in an upcoming video, so make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss it. So, if Airbus won't build an A380 successor, what other options does Emirates have? Perhaps they could push Airbus to build an A380neo. This solution seems much more feasible. For some context, the A380 program cost Airbus $34 billion, and building a clean sheet successor could cost even more. In comparison, refreshing its design could cost as little as $2 billion, as was the case for the A330neo. So the financial risk seems much more tolerable. As a matter of fact, Airbus has already explored an A380neo concept. That happened in the late 2010s, when Airbus proposed a refreshed design utilizing new engines derived from the Trent XWB, the type of engine that powers the A350. All things told, this would improve fuel burn by 12 to 14%. But at the end of the day, this change wasn't quite enough to drum up sufficient demand, and the planes were abandoned. But engine technology is in a much different place today than it was even 5 years ago. Rolls-Royce, for instance, is about to start testing its new Ultrafan. This engine features two new technologies: advanced composite fan blades and a geared turbofan architecture. In conjunction, they could deliver a 20% fuel burn advantage over the Trent 900, the engine that powers today's A380s. Pair these engines with a new composite wing, and all of a sudden, the A380neo looks pretty compelling. But even so, it remains a pipe dream. Not because it isn't compelling, but because Airbus needs to allocate resources elsewhere. Again, the last A380 rolled off the factory floor in 2021, and the second it did so, Airbus began converting its final assembly line to build A320s. The A320 family has a gargantuan backlog of over 8,000 units, and at current production rates, it would take over 13 years to clear it. By converting the A380's factory space, Airbus is able to increase A320 production. And at the end of the day, addressing the sky-high demand for its best-selling plane is way more important than building a few new jumbos. That's especially true now that the 737 MAX is experiencing a comeback. Its backlog has swelled in recent months, in part because of its availability. Airlines can get their hands on new MAXs much sooner than new Neos. So Airbus isn't likely to revert these resources back to the A380 program, as it would work to diminish the A320's appeal. With neither an A380 successor nor an A380neo on the horizon, where does Emirates turn? Well, naturally, they turn to Boeing. Boeing's largest plane, the 747-8, is close to the A380 in capacity. However, Boeing plans to shutter 747 production later this year. While I'm sure Boeing would keep the assembly line running for Emirates, and as much as we'd all love more 747s to be built, there's just a far more enticing option on the table. Just below the 747 in capacity is the 777X, and it's the plane best suited to replace the A380. At first, it feels like an imperfect solution. The average A380 carries about 100 more people than the largest 777X variant, the 777-9. However, there's nothing preventing Boeing from building an even bigger version of the plane, likely called the 777-10. The 777-10 would be very cost-effective. According to Boeing leadership, building a bigger variant is pretty straightforward to do. It would make room for 4 additional rows, increasing the plane's capacity from 420 to 460. This is still shy of what the A380 can carry, but it's about as big of a plane as Emirates can hope to get. Plus, Emirates is already a massive 777X customer. With 115 of them on order, adding the 777-10 to the fleet is a no-brainer. This solution would be a boon for both sides, and the timing couldn't be better. From Boeing's perspective, they've really struggled to sell the 777X, so a massive order infusion would deliver a much-needed boost. From Emirates' perspective, they plan to phase out the A380 starting in 2035. And if the 777-10 is launched in the next year or two, that means it'll likely hit the market in the early 2030s, allowing Emirates to gently transition its fleet. Ultimately, this solution wouldn't be quite what Emirates wants, but it could be exactly what Emirates needs. So, what do you guys think? Should Airbus build an A380 successor, or should they just let Boeing take Emirates' business? Let me know in the comment section down below. Thank you so much to my patrons for helping to make this video possible. If you like what I do and want to help the channel grow, go ahead and visit this link right here. And as always, if you learned something new today, leave a like and subscribe to keep learning. And until I see you again, don't forget to look up.